Are black comedians speaking for the entire black American population? Thank you for tuning in to the Power News with your host, Shikama. It's absurd to actually think that a comedian, which has risen to fame because he tells jokes and lies, can actually come out and be taken seriously as speaking out for black people. What you don't understand, if you're a black person, is that the whole point of a comedian is that he tells a lie, he tells a story that more than often than not, he's never even seen, never even heard of, never has been involved in. But because he is a professional liar, he is able to formulate this lie, which we call a joke, into an entertaining anecdote that he then can present to an audience. So, when you go to hear a comedian speak and he says, "My mother did this, my uncle did this, my brother did this," you can rest assured that nearly 100% of the time, none of this ever happened to his mother, uncle, brother, son, wife, him. None of it ever happened in his life or to anybody he knew. He is just formulating a lie that he's going to make funny. Or it's a complete joke that he's heard a million times and he's tweaked it to make it seem like the joke is happening in his life somehow. Now, this person who has risen to fame and fortune by lying and formulating the best lies and coming across as sincere in telling his lies is now going to speak for black people. It's absurd. And I say it is criminal almost. Why? Because we have comedians speaking for black women. We have comedians speaking for black men. You have no idea who is behind that comedian, just like you have no idea who's behind Obama. We speculate with very good observation that Wall Street and bankers are behind Obama, the President of the United States, the seat of power in the world. We have no idea who's behind these black comedians. Who is it? Steve Harvey, think like a man, act like a woman. We don't need a black comedian to tell our women what to do. Black women need to go to their mothers and ask them how to act. We don't need a comedian telling our black men what to do. Black men need to go to their fathers and ask them what to do. And we don't need black women getting in the way of our black men going to their fathers to talk to them. Shaniqua, you're not a man. You do not have a penis. Get out the way. I don't care if it's wrong, completely off-kilter, criminal information. Let the child, the black man, go to his father and speak to him. Because even if what he says is completely wrong, it's going to be from a man's perspective. And that's the important thing. Even if the black father says, "I don't know," it'll be from a black man's perspective. Now, we need to do more of that. Teach our children to honor their parents and respect their parents. So many times, and I've said that black people in general, across the board, per survey, per research, per studies that have been done, have less of a divorce rate than white people. So when we get married, we stay together. But we have those instances where black women and black men get a divorce, and in that time, one divorced parent poisons the child against the other parent. That needs to stop. The child has to continue loving each parent regardless of your particular relationship with that partner, and I don't think you should get divorced in it unless the other person is beating you physically. For me, that's it. Or they have gone outside of the marriage. Those are the only two things that I say are a no-go. But other than that, you should never get divorced. Even if they spend all of your money, even if they run your name through the gutter, even if they're verbally abusive. There's so many people get so upset and get divorced because somebody said, "Oh, you're stupid." You know what? You go to a counselor, you go to an advisor, you go to therapy, you work it out, or you go to your parents or your minister, somebody older than you, and they might say, "You know what? He didn't mean to call you stupid. He just had a terrible day. He walked through the door and you jumped on him with your nagging, and he turned around and called you stupid, but you don't want to admit that you nagged him, nor do you want to admit that you already knew that he was having a bad day because you could see it in his eyes as soon as he opened the door." A lot of times, a lot of these things, you just need a little bit of education on psychology, and you can see that the thing that your husband or wife is doing isn't even directed at you. It's directed in general. They are frustrated at something. They're mad about something. Somebody did something to them that day, or somebody continually does something to them every day, and they lash out at people who are near them. They are not able to lash out at that person. Maybe it's a boss. Maybe it's a manager. Maybe it's a client. Maybe it's somebody whom they are afraid that if they said anything, they would get fired. So they come home and they vent. But you take that as, "Oh, we need a divorce. You don't love me anymore." Get over yourself and understand what's going on with the spouse, and make sure that your children don't see any of that. Always make sure that your children have a perfect upbringing. Perfect. Make sure only rainbows, ribbons, and daffodils are in your children's life. You can save the world is horrible speech when they hit 13, 14. For girls, maybe 12, because that's the age when people start looking at them sexually. And that's the truth. 12. That's when you hit a girl. A boy, you can hit them at 15, something like that. Then you can say, hey partner, come here, let me break it down to you. The world is horrible. And for a black man, it's super extra horrible. And for the black girl, you say, the world is horrible. And you have a uterus which can conceive babies, so you have to be extra careful. You have that speech with them when they're 12. When they're 1 through 10, rainbows, daffodils, what have you, and you make sure that you continually impart wisdom to your child. So that when a black comedian comes out and says, "I think such and so," you need to turn around and say, "No, you're not the person to say that. Maybe my minister, maybe a politician who is making policy, but you as a comedian, no. Maybe a talk show host who has a degree in politics. Yeah, maybe. But a comedian, no. Black people, we need to choose our leaders. We don't need our leaders chosen for us. Obama was chosen for us. Understand that. And he's not a black leader. He's a Wall Street leader. He's a corporatist leader. There is nothing that Obama says or does that does anything for, that means in your best interest, for black people. Thus, he is not a black leader. There is nothing that is good for black people in Obama. Understand that in 2014. It's time to grow up, be an adult, and see who can lead us to the promised land. We are still searching for the promised land. Yes, we are. You know, people are talking about, oh well, it's 2014. We're post-racial. No, lies. The black community he is at an all-time high in unemployment, nearly 40%. How can Obama be a black leader? He's not. Now, pull your head out of your butt, pull it out of the sand, and understand that Obama and these comedians, we don't know who's behind the comedians. It could be some total nefarious entity or group that is financing this guy to write these books, make these speeches, go on tours, have these comedy shows, and say these things. You know, just to give you a little brief history that doesn't apply to black people, but it applies to this subject. In Scotland, their bards. You know what a bard is? A bard is a person who tells tales. They kept the histories of the area. It was an oral history, and they kept the history. They had the mental capacity to memorize tons of things and repeat it verbatim. But they would go from town to town, pick up news, and deliver the news in the next town. They would sing, they would dance, they would entertain, and they would tell stories. They would be the old comedians. This is where the comedians come from. It's the court jester that we are called in some other societies. But in Scotland, they were called bards. They made laws to prevent the bards from saying certain things because the bards had power over the population. The bards were capable of moving the population into thinking a certain way. Don't dismiss this video because I'm talking about comedians. The arts, comedy, stuff that you see, stuff that you hear, has power over the population. And if you don't think that there's some sinister people behind these black comedians, you're a fool in every sense of the word. Thank you for watching Power News with your host, Shikama. Leave a comment, please. Subscribe if you haven't, and please like the video and share it with all of your black brothers and sisters. Thank you.